Hello and welcome. This is our weekly Talk to Addis program with me, your host, Alula Brhani. Today, I just have brought you a new guest to stay with us. Welcome to our studio, Mr. Ignacio.
Thank you.
So to begin with, would you tell us, or would you introduce yourself to our audience? Who is Mr. Ignacio?
So my name is Ignacio Aguilar Lazagabaster, and I'm a researcher at the National Research Center on Human Evolution that is situated in a city that is 2 hours north of Madrid. It's called Burgos. And there in Spain we have also, just like here in Ethiopia, an important site that is called Atapuerca. And with the excuse of this important site, they built a research center for the study of human evolution, for the study of our origins, and that's where I have a position right now.
Good. So, viewers, as you have heard, Mr. Ignacio is a paleoanthropologist. Okay, to begin with, would you tell us what paleoanthropology means and what specific area of paleoanthropology do you specialize in and why? Why on that?
Paleoanthropology is the study of human evolution, is the study of our origins, is the study of how we became who we are, where do we come from, and who do we are. So basically it's a very multidisciplinary science that is gonna tell us everything about our past, our deep roots, and about our connection with nature a long time ago. And specifically what I do in my research is to study the thousands and thousands of animal fossil remains that appear with the human fossils that we are able to find. All of these animals were sharing the same habitat, the same place with our ancestors, and they give us information about the environment where they lived, the challenges that they had to face where they were living, and also something about the behavior, right? How they were hunting these animals, what our ancestors were eating. So all of these things I try to integrate in my own research.
Would you tell us a specific area that you do?
Yeah, so for example, here in Ethiopia and in Kenya, in Eastern Africa in general, is one of the best places in the world to study our earliest origins. So a time frame between 7 million years ago and a million years ago or something like that. So that's what I specialize on. For example, here in Ethiopia, in the Afar region, we have a lot of sites that tell us about these early ancestors that lived more than 3 million years ago. For example, I think everybody knows here the fossil of Lucy, right? Lucy, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary, and we had a big conference a couple of weeks ago. It's called the East African Conference for Paleoanthropology and Paleontology. And we have all the authorities actually coming to introduce the 50th anniversary of Lucy. So all the Ethiopian authorities came to praise the 50th anniversary of the discovery of this important fossil. And this fossil has been found in the Afar region of Ethiopia. And what I try to do is to give a context to this fossil. I try to understand what animals were living in, with Lucy in the environment and the other relatives, and basically to tell the story of Lucy from a more broader perspective.
Why do we need to focus on paleoanthropology? What is the importance? Why are we just investing our time, research, and resources? What value would it have to our future development? Would you tell us about this one?
In my opinion, the most important lesson that paleoanthropology teaches us is that at the end of the day, in the world, we are all brothers, we are all cousins, we are all related to each other. We all have a common origin, all humans. And since many terrible things happen in our history, right? And I think paleoanthropology helps us understand that we are not that different. Of course, there are a lot of cultural differences. We may have different skin color, we may have different heights or different personalities, but at the end of the day, we all come from the same grandparents, some of which, by the way, live here in Ethiopia, as I said, more than 3 million years ago. So this is one of the most important things that teaches us. They teach us, paleoanthropology can teach us to unite as human beings, in brotherhood, rather than separate each other. And secondly, I think in the case of certainly of Ethiopia, for example, I think because people always want to know where they come from, I think in the case of, for example, promoting tourism, Ethiopia being a country that has one of the most impressive and one of the richest fossil records of our own history, of our deep history in the world. I think many people are interested in that, and that may also, bring a lot of tourism, for example, for there, a lot of development. So I think there are these two main things that we should keep investing in paleoanthropology.
Can you describe a significant fieldwork experience, and then what have you learned from it? Tell us this is a significant fieldwork that you have had in your experience, and what lessons have you learned from it?
Yeah, definitely. So just to keep things local, right? Because I've worked in other countries, but as I said, I very much focus my research in Ethiopia. I was very lucky to join a research expedition to the Afar region, to a site called Ledi Gararo. And this is a site where we found evidence of the earliest appearance of our own genus, the genus Homo, right? So we're talking about Lucy before. Lucy belongs to the genus Australopithecus, so it's a different genus related to us. It's our grandma, but it's slightly different to us, different limb proportions, different behavior. But in Ledi Gararo is where we find the earliest evidence of our own genus. It's not our species yet. We are talking about 2.8 million years ago. But this was all over the news in Ethiopia many years ago. So I was very lucky to be in that, to participate in that fieldwork. And not only is how amazing the discoveries we've made in that site, is also everything I learned regarding the techniques that you should use in the field. So people may think that going to the field involves just looking for treasures, and taking those treasures and leaving them in the museum. But actually, fieldwork is a multidisciplinary enterprise that involves a lot of people from different disciplines. And there are many standards and rigorous way in which we find the fossils, in which we collect the fossils, and in which we study those fossils. Ultimately, if you don't do that work, the results of the investigation will not be validated by our international peers. So that's one of the things I learned, back in the time when I joined Ledi Gararo here in Ethiopia.
Tell us about your discoveries and contributions that you have had contributed or to the development of the paleoanthropological studies. Tell us what you have done.
So as I said before, I mostly specialized on the study of the animals that were living with our ancestors, on the environments that our ancestors were occupying, right? So for example, in the case of Hadar, where Lucy was found, animals tell us the story that the habitats where our early ancestor was living were very heterogeneous, and were changing continuously, from having more forested areas with a big lake to more open grasslands with time. And we see this progression of habitats that were more closed with more forest to habitats that were more open through time, and how that influenced the evolution of our ancestors, right? Our ancestors had the challenge to adapt to these new environments through time. We're talking about thousands and thousands and millions of years of change. But our ancestors were able to adapt to those new challenges, to change their behavior, to change their diet, to change their morphology. And that is part of our own history. Those ancestors that lived there, were able to survive, and that is one of the reasons we are here. So that's what I continue to do, trying to understand how climate change, environmental change has affected our history.
What methods and technologies do you use to analyze fossils and artifacts? What are the methods? Tell us about specifically the procedures that you use, methods and technologies that you use to employ or make analysis of fossils and artifacts in your archaeological studies.
Yeah. So very much I'm a classic paleontologist, right? And one of the basic work that needs to be done before any advanced methodologies are used is to describe, identify, and really get a hold of what we are looking at when we look at the fossils, right? To understand to which animal they belong, to understand how they look, what adaptations those animals had. Those already give us, very important information about the possible diets and adaptations that both hominins, our early ancestors, and the animals they lived with were adapting to. But once that preliminary, that basic job is done, then we can go into many different techniques. One of the most important ones, I would say, in the last decades has been the use of CT scanning technology, micro CT scan, right? Just as people go to the doctor and they get a CT scan, to see if they have anything wrong inside. We also look in the inside of fossils, something that before we couldn't do. We had the fossil, we could look at it from the outside. Now we can look at it in the inside, and that is teaching us a lot of lessons, about the internal morphology of teeth, internal morphology of bones, that are very important also to understand these type of things. Another, for example, technique, and I finish with this one, is stable isotopes, right? This is a chemical procedure that allows to look into the internal chemistry of teeth, and that can tell us something about the diet of hominins and about the diet of animals that were living in the past. And for example, that has taught us that we probably changed sometime in our evolutionary history during these millions of years from being frugivores, so we were eating fruits probably in trees, to eating more leaves and grasses, until ultimately we started hunting animals and changing our diet completely. So all of these things, have allow us to really have a different perspective on what we know about the past.
So the next one, what are some of the biggest challenges you face in your discovery or in your paleoanthropological research or fieldwork?
What we do doesn't produce an economical return immediately. We live in a society where people are expecting that economic return to be fast. People want the money back very fast. We don't provide something at the in the short term. We provide knowledge that, as I said before, teaches a valuable lesson if you are able to, to look at it from this perspective. But it's always in the midterm or in the long term. We are talking about millions of years. It's complicated. We are talking about the past. We can never be 100% sure of what happened. So this is a very careful and detailed, gradual study that we are making. So, we are always trying to convince politicians and funding agencies to be patient with the work we do. And secondly, I think the other challenge we face is a challenge that unfortunately many other professions face nowadays, right? Which is complicated international political situations, right? Wars, conflicts in different countries. You can imagine 3 million years ago, there were no countries, there were no frontiers. Animals moved freely. Humans, moved in those areas. The borders that we have now are artificial. So, it's when you work in a country, you also want to know what's happening in the other country because you know that these are connected and they were connected in the past. But there are many countries where we cannot work, or there are also many countries where the geological aspects of the country are not good enough to find fossils. Maybe I'm going ahead of myself, but one of the things why in Ethiopia we find so many fossils is because we are in the middle of the Rift Valley, right? This is a place of high volcanic activity that is separating two plates, very big plates, and it's creating all of this volcanic activity, and this creates the perfect scenario for fossils to be preserved. So that's why, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Eastern Africa is such a good place to work on our origins, So I think these are the challenges. One is funding. The second one is limitation to access certain areas, and the third one is also the nature of the fossil record, right, which is also very biased spatially. So,
having said all this, how do you collaborate with different fields like paleoanthropology works with genetic science and that of geological sciences. So tell us about those things. What does the collaboration looks like?
Yeah, so as I said before, this science, paleoanthropology, is multidisciplinary to the extreme where we necessitate. It's not only that we collaborate for our, to improve our research. It's because it's needed. We collaborate with people from many different areas, right? Social sciences, psychologists to understand the behavior of different human populations, archaeologists, anthropologists, of course, biologists that are going to explain something about evolution. But we also work with geologists, right, that have to understand the age of the fossils, right? How do we know that Lucy was 3 million, had an age of 3 million years? That we know because of geologists. But geologists at the same time, they have to work with physicists and chemists because all of the analyses that are involved in understanding the chemistry of the fossils, of the age of the deposits, we need those type of disciplines. So when we go to the field, we normally bring a very multidisciplinary group of researchers from many different countries that are specialized in very specific aspects of the work. So when we ask for the funding that I was talking before, we need to count with all of them. We need to create these big groups, and that means, crossing borders and trying to understand everybody and what they do. So it's very enriching because we learn all the time a lot of things, and the fields are advancing, at such a pace that it's difficult to catch up with everything that's happening, and that's why you need experts in every single topic to produce the best results possible.
Let's come to the ethical considerations when you deal with fossils. Yeah. So what ethical considerations are involved in human excavation of human fossils and in your research? How do you manage that, the ethical consideration aspect?
Yeah.
Because you might face up with people, they don't want to have such kind of thing.
Yeah, there are two aspects here, I think. One is that certain populations, right, around the world, they are defending the right to keep their dead, right, their ancestors where they were buried, for example, right, and to avoid, these archaeological excavations, right. This is, for example, something that is happening in North America, right, with the native Indian Americans. And I completely understand why, and they have a very good point. But the other thing is that human populations have moved so much in the last thousands of years. If we talk about millions of years, it's a concept of time that is really difficult to grasp. So of course, when we go to the field, we work on 3 million year deposits. Nobody thinks, oh yeah, that was my early grandfather, so don't take it out of the ground, So normally we don't have any problem with that. As you get closer to our time, is where people start feeling more attached to those remains. My opinion on this is that you always have to count on the local population, and the desires of the local people. If the local people do not want to do a certain thing, I think what you have to do is to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it and why it's important. And if they still don't want to continue, I think that's the priority, is to respect that. The second thing about ethical considerations in our field comes now with the repatriation of fossils that are housed European or Western, museums, the British Museum in Paris, in many other museums around Europe. We have archaeological remains and fossil remains that were taken mostly during colonial times, right? And there is a big movement now trying to repatriate some of these fossils. I don't think in Ethiopia it's not the case. I don't know if you know, but when Lucy was found, Lucy was moved almost all around the world. It was shown to the world. It was moved to the United States. It was studied in the United States. Then it was shown all over, which is good because people had the possibility of looking at it. But now, what we encourage, and now what the law says, is that the fossils that are found in a country should stay in the country because they are part of the cultural heritage of the people that live in that country. And we completely support this. And right now, of course, Lucy is very close to us right now in the National Museum of Ethiopia, safely guarded by Ethiopian researchers and Ethiopian curators, and that's how it should be. And finally, the third thing is about names, right? Many names of fossils and many names of species and many names of even geographical regions in Africa already had a name, but when European researchers came, they gave their own names, right? And those names have perpetuated, they have stayed with us. The name of Lucy itself, Lucy is already a foreign name, right? Which we all appreciate and it's not a problem, but what we're trying now is to use, for example, local names, right? To honor the people that live in the country, that live close to those fossils, right? So those are I would say the three ethical, most important considerations that we are trying to improve in our field.
Okay, finally, being as a paleoanthropologist, and like what we have been saying, really witnessing or observing the discoveries made in Ethiopia. So, as part of our bilateral discussion that we have together, you have been telling me you have been coming to Ethiopia for some time. So how does it feel like, when you came to Addis Ababa, specifically here or different parts of Ethiopia? How do you see the culture, the food, the drink, whatsoever? How does it feel like to be in Ethiopia? There's one thing that it's an origin of humanity, and that is a well-researched, witnessed, or evidenced kind of reality. But apart from that, what kind of feeling does it spark into your heart when you came to Ethiopia?
Well, the first time I came to Ethiopia was more than 10 years ago, and I was a young scholar at the time, and it was my second time visiting a country in Africa. I had been to Kenya the previous year, and then I came to Ethiopia. And for me, it always looked, I always felt like I was, experiencing some type of dream, because it was so different to what I was used to see, right? The people, the streets, the way of doing things. Everything was so different at first glance that I felt like I was living in a dream. I was looking at everything, like trying to catch every single thing, right? Trying to learn from every single thing, that I was seeing. Everything looked so exotic to me, But I realized very quickly, that people were so similar to me, the culture was very different. The way we do things was different. But when we started talking, when we started having buna together, having beer, having going for lunch, suddenly I realized that we were the same. And after 10 years, you can imagine, now I have many Wadenya, Usu Wadenya in Addis, and I feel completely like home. So now it's a different feeling. Now I think I understand things in a more deep way. I don't look at things more like the first time with those trying to grasp everything. Now I really try to to know the people, right? And yeah, for me, as I said before, this feels like my second home. And I feel more like home here in Ethiopia than in many other countries in the world. So for me, it's very special to be here and to come here almost every year since I first came. And to be working, as you said, to be working in this, in this topic, about our origins, it makes it even more special, I think. So, yeah, I think that's my reflection on this. But I've always been, very well accepted by everybody here in Addis and in Ethiopia in general. And every time I come, I make new friends. So I'm always happy to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Ignacio. Well, viewers, that was all what we have for you for today. I hope that you have found beneficial lessons from the discussion that we have with Mr. Ignacio, a paleoanthropologist staying here in Addis Ababa. Till we meet up with another guest in another place and time. Bye-bye.